that I had purchased this property from B, and B had denied that I did not sell it. And during the trial, A produces a handwritten letter confirming the sale of the property to A. And when the letter is produced before B, B admits to the contents and signature of that letter. No further proving is necessary on the basis of that admission. That does not end the trial. The trial may be dependent on several other factors, but as far as that aspect of the fact that yes, there was an exchange of correspondence between these two in respect of the sale of the property, and the other one is admitting that yes, this letter is mine, this handwriting is mine, the signature is mine, but XYZ. So rest of the things may be proved or disproved, but this correspondence that yes, there is some substance into this deal is proved, and no further proving of that letter is necessary. That is admission. Whereas confession in a criminal trial cannot be the sole criteria to award punishment. Confession is not a conclusive proof. Now please understand the distinction. Confession cannot be the sole criteria of awarding punishment. And then there are several categories. 24 onwards into this 17 to 30, 24 onwards is confession. So 17 to 23 is admission, 24 to 30 is confession. And then 25 says a confession to a police officer is not admissible in the court of law. Now, which confessions are admissible in court of law? A confession which is made before a judicial officer, then it becomes admissible in the court of law. But mind you, there is a distinction between admissibility of a confession and the sole basis of awarding punishment. Remember, a confession in certain categories may be admissible in evidence, but cannot be in any case the sole criteria of punishment. You have to corroborate confession with other facts. So for example, if you go to police station and say that I have killed somebody, will you be punished? No. Prove करो तुमने मारा. अरे मैंने मारा, हम नहीं मानते. हाँ? No. अरे बाबा, पुलिस में जाके कन्फेशन की वैल्यू ही नहीं है. You went, section 25 prohibits that cannot be admissible in the, so forget about awarding punishment, it is not even admissible in the court. If the police officer says that this man came to us and said, I killed somebody, so what? Forget about awarding, it's not even admissible. Looks funny to you, but this is the principle of Evidence Act.
Killed his brother. Praveen Mahajan killed Pramod Mahajan.
Who says who?
He only went and confessed at the other police station, and he gave up the weapon also, which was used to kill his brother. So what was that?
But he was subjected to the entire trial. Was he punished immediately on that confession? No.
So that is because our system is like this.
He was, that's what I mean, he was taken into custody, but he was subjected to the whole trial. No, but, and that is why when as a layman something boggles you, that we saw Kasab killing so many men. But why the trial? The trial is because of the established principles of law. Now, the other admissibility criteria of the confession, first is that it is admissible when it is made before a judicial officer or a magistrate competent to take confessions. If you see in connection 164 of the CRPC, in the Evidence Act. The other is, the confession becomes admissible in the court of law that when it leads to a recovery of a weapon or some substance. For example, if I confess that I killed somebody, that confession is not admissible in the court of law. But if this confession is coupled with a discovery that I only led the police to the dead body, that's here is the man I killed, and I only led the police to the weapon with whom I killed, with which I killed, then the discovery coupled with confession becomes admissible in the court of law. Pure confession is not even admissible, forget about awarding punishment on the basis of confession. Got the point? Then section 32, another interesting aspect is dying declaration. Normally, it is presumed that a person dying will not lie. But again, this is a presumption. Who knows that the person dying spoke a truth which is subjective to his or her perception? Because truth is also subjective, isn't it? So in my perspective, in my perception, this was a truth which was actually not the truth. So sometimes the dying declaration cannot be the sole criteria of awarding the punishment, though it is presumed that a dying person normally does not lie and speaks truth. And then if you go through section 32, there are so many exceptions, explanations. So law of evidence is a very interesting subject. If I keep speaking, I'll keep speaking for months together. I'm sorry?
Days and days.
Days and days, months together, we all can keep sitting and we can keep talking. Anyway, let's move on to further. It's a very, very interesting area of law because the entire trial, whether it's a civil trial or a criminal trial, are conducted on the basis of the principles of evidence. Now, there is an area of opinion, expert opinion, handwriting expert, writing expert, fingerprint expert. There are several kinds of experts: medical expert, legal expert, forensic expert. And there's lined up, you can name it, there are several experts into different fields. And because the courts come across several types of trials where the court want to know an expert's opinion, because the court is not equipped with the knowledge of that area. So Indian Evidence Act allows expert's opinion to be taken into consideration during the trial.